Okay, people, here's the reality. I filmed Ask Aaron this afternoon with the intent of uploading it tonight at VBS with better internet. Unfortunately, the first half of Ask Aaron, which was about the message given by a visiting pastor 2 weeks ago, has some sort of corruption. So you're going to jump in halfway through. I will answer those questions on the video I post for Friday. But don't be alarmed if I kind of feel like I'm halfway through my spiel. I am. As always, these views are mine, not the church's. I hope they agree, and we hope you can jump in the comments section and continue the conversation. And now, let's get on with Ask Aaron. Okay, so moving on to the message I gave about Jonah last week. First question on that, why did Jonah prefer to see a city burn over seeing it repent? And the answer to this, I think, is pretty clear, pretty obvious. Jonah wanted life to be fair. He thought fairness was a godly biblical principle, which it's, first of all, just really not. And second of all, it's one of those things where all of us think we want life to be fair, right? Well, God did this and God said he was going to do that. And so now I want God to treat them the way he would treat me, or to treat them the way he said he was going to treat them. But none of us actually want God to be fair. In fact, grace is the prime example of not fair from God, right? We all, because of our sin, were destined and we did deserve to be separated from God forever. But because of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, we are saved. We are made right with God, and we are able to spend eternity with him. And so, Jonah is seeing all of the junk that the city of Nineveh did, and all of the stuff that he was sent there to tell them not to do, and all of the stuff that God said he was going to do to them. Now God doesn't do to them because they repent, and he says, in his very fallen, sinful human way, well, that's not fair. He's right, it's not fair. And the way that God treats us and replies to us and responds to us isn't necessarily fair either, and yet we graciously accept it. No, we run to it. We desire it. We want God to not be fair and give us what we deserve. And in the same way, Jonah should have preferred to see Nineveh repent and be saved. But fallen, sinful human being, that's not what he says. That's not what he does. Eventually, I think he comes around and says, well, I don't really want God to be fair. But we all probably would have wanted the same thing, right? God, you said you were going to smite them. You said you were going to punish them, and now you're not punishing them, and it feels so unfair. Why, God? What? Because we're fallen, sinful human beings, and we think we want fair for others when we obviously don't want fair for ourselves. Okay? Next question. Why did God choose Jonah? Surely there was a better choice available. Perhaps there seemed to be a better choice available. First, Jonah was the prophet, the one chosen by God to speak to the Israelites and to others in surrounding cities and nations. Obviously, God chose him for a reason. Surely there was a better choice available. Well, maybe in our eyes, sure, but God exists outside of time and understands what's going to happen and how it's going to work out and how it's going to play out and what it's going to reveal about God's character and what it's going to reveal about God's willingness to use people. And so perhaps God chose Jonah specifically because he knew Jonah would run, Jonah would repent, that it would reveal God's miraculous ability to keep him alive in the belly of the big fish. Not necessarily a whale, could have been a whale. There are all sorts of reasons that God perhaps chose Jonah and knew what was going to happen, and perhaps those are the reasons that God chose Jonah specifically because of what it would reveal and what the story of Jonah would mean and point out, and that we would see that even if we have run from God, even if we have been disobedient from God, even if we have done the opposite of what God asks us to, we can still turn and repent and choose to do what it is that God is calling us to do, and God will use us and God will work in us and through us to do incredible and amazing things. So that's probably why God chose Jonah, because he was the perfect choice. But for us, sure, right? Somebody else seems like a much more logical choice. Not necessarily so. Last question about the message of Jonah. If I talked with God, I would hope that if he spoke to me and called me to something, I would listen. How come it was so easy for Jonah to walk away? Again, the answer to this is Jonah is a fallen, sinful human being. We think, oh, it's so easy. God spoke directly to him. He should know that God is all powerful and all knowing, and he should follow what God says. Well, I know personally. I spoke to some kids on a youth trip on the youth trip this past week ago, and it was like they said God spoke to me, and I felt God calling me to go pray for that person, or to go say this thing to that person, or to go put my arms around them and hug them, and I didn't listen, and I'm so sad. I feel like I missed an opportunity, and I just want to encourage everybody here. If God speaks to you, you should always listen. Well, yeah, we all have that, but we all get afraid, right? We all think, oh, that's not something that I'm comfortable with. Oh, that's not something that God would really ask me to do. Oh, it's going to be really hard. Oh, I'm going to have that conversation, and it's going to stink. And I don't even really know that person. Why would God be calling me? They're not. And so we don't do the thing. And eventually we feel bad that we didn't do the thing. And we regret that we didn't do the thing. And I think Jonah regretted not listening to God and not doing what God asked him to do. And yet he goes back and he does eventually listen to God. And I think the message for all of us is, even if we have chickened out, even if we have missed an opportunity, that we still can make that right. We can still turn away from not listening and start listening and be obedient to God. I know that there have been times in my life when God has called me to something and it's been really challenging, and I've done it, and I have felt so thankful for not just, my obedience, but for the ways that God has used me in those situations. Because yeah, it's been difficult, and yeah, it's been stressful, and sure, it's been challenging, and maybe it wasn't the most popular thing to do, but listening to God turned out so right for me and for the others in the situation. And so I want to encourage you, if you haven't listened to God, if you haven't done what you feel God has spoken to you to do, that doesn't mean the next time you can't. That doesn't mean the opportunity he gave you in the past won't come around again and give you another shot. When God speaks to you, it is really important to listen. But if you make a mistake and you mess up, don't think that God's done with you and he'll never use you again. Just ready yourself for the next time that God asks you to do something and speaks to you to do something, and be ready to be obedient to that call, because it's just an incredible thing to be used by God. And God does miracles in us and through us. All right? With that said, I'm going to put out another video on Friday of this week. We're going to be talking about my message that I gave on John the Baptist, which is available, hillcityhudson.org/media. You can go to the Facebook and YouTube pages, or you can watch it on the app as well. So until next time, until Friday, have a great rest of your week. And as always, thanks for asking, Aaron.